Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here. And today I'm talking about my Criterion Flash Sale haul. I didn't go too nuts this time. It's always nice to get that email from Criterion when they're doing the flash sale through their website. It's usually a 24-hour thing, so you don't have a lot of time to mull over your choices. You have to really be tactical. And so I got three things to talk about today. I'm going to start with the most important and most exciting of them, and that is Todd Browning's Sideshow Shockers. This is a release on Blu-ray of three Todd Browning films. Todd Browning, of course, directed Dracula for Universal. He is a fascinating individual. I'm going to go into that in a second here. But so this is the first appearance on Blu-ray for all of these films. I think the one that is most anticipated by a lot of people is Freaks, his film from 1932, a true cult favorite. Also included here is The Unknown from 1927 with Lon Chaney Sr., and then The Mystic from 1925, which, as I understand it, is making its home video debut with this set. So there hasn't been a previous home video release of that film. Both The Unknown and The Mystic are silent films, and of course Freaks is a sound film. But let's talk about Freaks for a second. So this is a movie that was part of the initial sort of cult lexicon that I discovered when I finally got into the books of Danny Perry, who I've talked about a lot on this show because he has been so influential to me. And so this is one I remember reading about and I've got my copy here of Cult Movies 1, his first of three Cult Movies books that he did. And as you can see, Freaks is listed in Cult Movies 1. And to kick this off, I'm just going to read some of Danny Perry's writing on Freaks from Cult Movies 1, which is what made me want to see it. So, anyway, when a boy in the late 1800s, Todd Browning did what millions of lads just dream about. He quit school and ran off to join the circus. He befriended the sideshow freaks and witnessed firsthand the public's simultaneous feelings of morbid fascination, fear, and pity toward them. It was these feelings that Browning drew out of audiences when he directed a series of silent horror classics in which Lon Chaney played characters with physical abnormities. One of those films is The Unknown. Sometimes Chansey would have no arms, sometimes he would have no legs. Always his body was twisted and ugly. Chaney, sorry. But while these films dealt with physical grotesqueries, they were not about freaks per se. It was only when, at the suggestion of actor Harry Earls, he made Freaks, starring actual freaks, that Browning was able to adequately express his own feelings towards the strange folk he had worked and lived with as a child. Viewers of this picture will feel not only fear, curiosity, and pity towards the freaks, but also warmth, respect, and amazement. Quote, Freaks is moving, harsh, poetic, and genuinely tender, writes critic Penelope Gilliatt. To enable people to look at grossly deformed human beings without ever feeling sickened or even intrigued is the sort of thing that can be done by art. Despite what Gilliatt writes, we are jolted and a bit sickened by our first sight of the freaks in the picture when the twisted, deformed creatures are playing in the farmer's field, but they are presented to us so matter-of-factly without dramatic music or close-ups that within minutes we are, as Gilliatt contends, perfectly comfortable in their presence. In fact, we can't help but admire how well they function despite their handicaps and that they carry on pridefully, their physical aberrations notwithstanding. So that's a good setup for this movie. And for the folks that don't know, the basic plot is that we have a circus. That's the setting, of course. And a beautiful trapeze artist played by, I think, Olga Balkanova, who, for whatever reason, decides to charm one of the little person actors or parts of the freak show into marrying her because he's about to get some kind of large inheritance. And so we get to know her and that she's not particularly on the up and up. And we get to see that the small person actor played by, I want to say that's Harry Earls, that was previously mentioned. He has a small person woman that is interested in him as well, and she's sort of watching at the sidelines as this trapeze artist, slowly seduces him, but she doesn't buy it for a second because she shouldn't, because that woman is a scumbag. Anyway, the film has a very famous ending where there's a comeuppance for one character. I'm not going to get into full specifics, but it does really give you a sense of what it was like to be part of a circus with a sideshow around the time that this is supposed to be taking place. So Todd Browning's experience with the circus and sideshows clearly shines through in, again, not only the depiction of the quote-unquote freaks, but in the sort of way that the characters interact with each other, the strongman or whoever. It just gives you a really neat sense of what that was like, or seemingly so, anyway. But it is a really interesting film and a cult film that has stuck with me for a long time, and it's relatively short. Of course, I've heard over the years that it's about 67 minutes or so, that some scenes have been lost, and there was a good deal of controversy around this film and it getting made, and this set is really, really fantastic in terms of digging out a lot of details about this film and how it was made, and again, those controversies surrounding it. It is a really epic set in terms of that. It has a new 2K digital restoration of the film, which is great, and it looks good. There is a new 2K digital restoration and reconstruction of The Unknown by George Eastman Museum with a new score by composer Philip Carley. New 2K digital restoration of The Mystic with a new score by composer Dean Hurley. Audio commentaries on Freaks and The Unknown, and an introduction to The Mystic by film scholar David J. Skal. And again, first time on home video for The Mystic. The commentaries by Skal are great. He really does a nice job. The introduction to The Mystic is about 9.5 minutes. That's a really neat little feature where he talks about that film specifically. And in his commentary, he gives a lot of background for Freaks I'm talking about. He probably does the same for The Unknown. I haven't had a chance to listen to that commentary yet. But he talks about public and critical responses to it, controversy, as well as filling in some of the lost scenes. He'll describe some of the lost scenes as we move through the film. There is a new interview with author Megan Abbott about director Todd Browning and pre-code horror in general. That's about 32 minutes. It's a really nice overview of Browning in general, and she talks about each film individually as well. So she gives you sort of, going through the three that are in the set, she gives you sort of a sense of those and points out some interesting details about each one. There is an archival documentary on Freaks itself that's about 1 hour and 3 minutes. There is an episode from the 2019 podcast Ticklish Business, Kristen Lopez's podcast, and they talk about disability representation in the film. There is a reading of the short story Spurs by Todd Robbins, which Freaks is based on. That is by David J. Skal also. There's the prologue to Freaks, which was added to the film in 1947, and there's a program on the alternate endings of Freaks. Plus, we get an essay by Farron Smith Neme as well, which I'd like to read a little bit of. But this is a really nice set. So you have a nice book that comes with it. 2-disc set. You have Freaks on the first disc and The Unknown and the Mystic on the second disc. Sideshow Shockers. And the essay looks like a sort of an old beat up, notebook of some sort, which is a nice touch, I think. So let's see here. The most celebrated and exquisitely perverse of the many collaborations between Todd Browning and his legendary leading man Lon Chaney. Oh, this is about The Unknown. That's cool. There's an essay about that. Here we go. Oh, this is cool. So yeah, Farron's essay is called Todd Browning's Ballyhoo Art. So she's the whole essay, which is quite a few pages long, is about Todd Browning himself. On October 10th, 1962, there appeared a brief paragraph from the Associated Press. Todd Browning, 82, who directed scores of movies between 1917 and 1939, is dead. He succumbed Saturday after an illness, and no funeral plans were announced. Born in Louisville, Kentucky, he began as an actor before turning to directing. His films include Dracula and Mark of the Vampire. The New York Times hardly did him a greater service. It ran a longer notice that same day, but undercut its own work by crediting Browning with directing Lon Chaney in his masterpiece, The Hunchback of the Notre Dame. Hunchback's director was Wallace Worsley. Elsewhere, columnist Caspar Monin wrote that Browning's passing was meant nothing to younger generation or the oldsters either, although Monahan did remind his readers that Browning directed Chaney in West of Zanzibar, 1928, and The Unholy Three, 1925. Surely there were people to whom the name Todd Browning, trailblazer of horror and bard of the grotesque, still meant something. Anyway, she goes real deep into his history, and it's a really great essay. I really enjoyed that. So that's an excellent extra feature. Let me talk just briefly about The Unknown and the Mystic. The Unknown stars Lon Chaney and a very young Joan Crawford, and she almost doesn't look like herself. She's so young in The Unknown. But the idea is that Chaney plays a man with no arms who has worked up an act where he can do things with his feet, including throw knives at Joan Crawford. And that's pretty interesting stuff. I think there was a double used for the feet knife throwing because he can't do that. Or, it's just done in editing. But we find out he has a secret about the no arms, which I'm not going to talk about. And he is into Joan Crawford's character. She is not into him. And yeah, there's some underhanded dealings going on, and he comes to, well, I don't want to give anything away really, but there is tragedy, and that's often the case in Todd Browning films. Definitely the case in Freaks, if you know the ending of that film as well. So that's The Unknown from 1927. The Mystic is fascinating. Again, these are both silent films. This is about a phony psychic named Zara, played by Eileen Pringle, in a Hungarian carnival, who, under the guidance of a Svengali-like con man, crashes and proceeds to swindle American high society. So it's really interestingly similar in some ways to the film Nightmare Alley, which would come, many years later, with Tyrone Power, and it's sort of a similar kind of thing of like conning people with crystal balls and sleight of hand sort of tricks, and will there be another comeuppance? I'll let you watch to find out, but it is a really, really neat set to have all these together. I'm very, very excited to have Freaks on Blu-ray and to have The Unknown and The Mystic as well. I think The Mystic may be my second favorite in the set, and it's really, really solid stuff. So a great pickup. You can definitely get it during the next sale. Hopefully there'll be a November sale for Criterion with Barnes & Noble, but let me go through what else I got here. Okay. So I also picked up The Princess Bride on 4K. This, of course, comes with a 4K and a Blu-ray. Princess Bride, a classic from Rob Reiner. And one that I've been trying to get my kid into for a long time, and it hasn't fully stuck just yet. But part of the reason for picking up this 4K is I believe I can make it happen at some point. So this, of course, comes with a 4K and a Blu-ray. And it comes in a digipack kind of case. So it's got like plastic wherein it's clear. So it looks like a book, basically, which is great because obviously the movie itself is about reading a storybook. And the essay itself is sort of stapled / attached to the inside of the case. Yeah. No, this is cool. I like the way the whole thing's set up. So if you don't know, The Princess Bride, the back says a high-spirited adventure that pits true love against inconceivable odds. Inconceivable, yes. The Princess Bride has charmed legions of fans with its irreverent gags, eccentric ensemble, and dazzling swordplay. A kid, Fred Savage, homesick from school, grudgingly allows his grandfather, Peter Falk, to read him a dusty storybook, which is how we meet the innocent Buttercup, Robin Wright, in her breakout role, about to marry the nefarious Prince Humperdinck, Chris Sarandon, from Fright Night. Though her heart belongs to Wesley, Cary Elwes, the wedding plans are interrupted, however, by a mysterious pirate, a vengeful Spaniard, and a good-natured giant in a tall tale full of swashbuckling romance and outrageously hilarious spoofery. Directed by Rob Reiner, from an endlessly quotable script by William Goldman, The Princess Bride reigns as a fairy tale classic. Very true. And this includes a 4K digital restoration with 5.1 surround, one 4K UHD disc of the film presented in Dolby Vision HDR, and one Blu-ray with the film and special features. Audio commentary featuring director Rob Reiner, screenwriter William Goldman, producer Andrew Scheinman, and actors Billy Crystal and Peter Falk. I think this commentary goes way back. I can't say to a Laserdisc? I can't remember, but I feel like that's an older commentary. But I'm sure I remember it being great. Edited audiobook reading of Goldman's novel. Of course, William Goldman had written the novel and then adapted it for the screenplay. Let's see here. By Rob Reiner, so I guess he reads it. Program about Goldman's screenplay. Program about Goldman's tapestry based on his novel. Interviews with Reiner, Goldman, and actors Crystal, Cary Elwes, Christopher Guest, I forgot he's in this, Mandy Patinkin, Chris Sarandon, Fred Savage, and Robin Wright. Interview with art director Richard Holland. Programs about makeup, fencing, and fairy tales. On-set diary filmed and narrated by Cary Elwes. 5 behind-the-scenes videos with commentaries by Reiner, Scheinman, and Crystal. Wow, there's a lot in here. Plus an essay by author Sloane Crossley and Goldman's introduction to his Princess Bride script from his collection 4 screenplays in a lavishly illustrated cloth-bound book. I didn't realize it was cloth-bound, but that's very nice. Yeah, so that's really, really cool. Just the beginning of Sloane Crosley's essay. There are certain films that one must be first exposed to as a child in order to still enjoy as an adult. Take Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, a timeless classic, but not necessarily one that glues itself to the imagination in adulthood, or Clue, a movie that seeps into the comic DNA at age 13. Mr. Body's Body, is that witty or what? But becomes almost gratingly over the top to the grown-up ear. Before visiting The Princess Bride, I worried it would fall into this category of film. It's not that. I suspected it wouldn't hold up. It's a whip-smart, widely beloved film, not some obscure Luke Perry vehicle I stumbled upon in the wrong sleeve at Blockbuster in 1993, but it had been a while. My concern was that after I rewatched it as an adult, I would find it had somehow been demoted to a less magical place in my memory. Because The Princess Bride does warrant the word magical, this is a movie in which the central action is Peter Falk reading a book. Anyway, that's a good start to that essay, and I just want to read the beginning of the William Goldman thing. Here is how the novel Princess Bride happened. I loved telling stories to my daughters when they were small. I would go into their room and stories would just be there. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't think much of what I do is very terrific, but my God, I was wonderful those early evenings. Stuff just came. I knew that because the girls would sneak out and tell their mother, and she would say to me, write it down, write it down. And I told her I didn't need to. I was on such a hot streak, I knew I'd remember. All gone, of course, and all the stuff I've done over almost 40 years of storytelling. More than anything, I wish I had those moments back. Doesn't matter, really. Woulda, shoulda, coulda. At any rate, I was on my way to Magic Town around 1970, and I said to both of them, to Jenny, then 7, and Susanna, then 4, I'll write you a story. What do you most want it to be about? And one of them said princesses, and the other said brides. And then that will be the title, I told them. And so it has remained. Anyway, I love that that's almost like reading, Falk reading the story, that intro. Anyway, so I'm very excited to dig into The Princess Bride, 4K UHD. Lastly, I picked up Don't Look Now, Nicholas Roeg's film, with Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland from 1973. This had come out obviously previously on Blu-ray from Criterion, but I was excited to get this 4K because it is a very striking film. And for those that don't know, Don't Look Now, Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie mesmerize as a British married couple on an extended trip to Venice following a family tragedy. That is quite a family tragedy indeed. Will definitely stick with you. While in that elegantly decaying city, they have a series of inexplicable, terrifying, and increasingly dangerous experiences. A masterpiece from Nicholas Roeg, Don't Look Now, adapted from a story by Daphne du Maurier, is a brilliantly disturbing tale of the supernatural, as renowned for its innovative editing and haunting cinematography as for its naturalistic eroticism and its unforgettable climax and denouement, one of the great endings in horror history. That is true. It is definitely that. And the editing is really great. There is a scene in Out of Sight. It's a love scene where the George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez are sort of intercut. I'm pretty sure it's straight ripping this scene off. They're intercut sort of getting undressed and getting dressed and having sex. Anyway, it's kind of mixed up in time, and this movie originated that sequence, and I'm pretty sure Soderbergh's straight ripping it off from this movie. But that is not that's just one little part of this film. There's just so much dread and horror, and it's just a really powerful film. One of both Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland's greatest performances, and these are actors who regularly turned in great performances. I just really enjoy the work of Nicholas Roeg overall. I talked about Walkabout recently. That's the start for him, and this is not too soon after that, but a completely different movie. Okay, so this film, this disc, 4K digital restoration approved by director of photography Anthony Richmond. One 4K UHD disc of the film presented in Dolby Vision HDR, and one Blu-ray of the film with special features. Conversation between editor Graham Clifford and film writer and historian Bobby Osteen. Don't Look Now, Looking Back, a short 2002 documentary featuring Clifford, Richmond, and director Nicholas Roeg. Don't Look Now, Death in Venice, a 2006 interview with composer Pino Donaggio. I forgot he did the score to this. Very great. Program on the writing and making of the film, featuring interviews with Richmond, actors Julie Christie, Donald Sutherland, and co-screenwriter Alan Scott. program on Rogue Style featuring interviews with filmmaker Danny Boyle and Steven Soderbergh, two very big fans, very stylish filmmakers in their own right. Q&A with Rogue from 2003 at London's Cine Lumiere, plus an essay by film critic David Thompson. So that is also included in here as well. A pretty thin but still nice to have essay. So you have your 4K and Blu-ray. Definitely excited to check these out as well. I hope you were able to participate in the flash sale, maybe pick up one or two things. And if you want to let me know what you picked up. I'd love to find out. I'd love to hear it. I'm always curious what people pick up during these sales. What are the things that you've been waiting to pick up? Are they new? Are they old? You know, there's so much in the vast Criterion catalog to dig into when a sale like this comes up. So I'm always curious what people are filling in terms of gaps in their collection during such a sale. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Okay, bye-bye.